Okay, so I can see our guest speaker has joined us, but we'll introduce her in a few minutes, as we normally do. So welcome to you, Bvudzai. But welcome to everybody, and welcome to our call for August, grassroots call. I think there might be some new people who are joining us from potentially anywhere in the world. So welcome to you if you've not been on one of these calls before. Hope everyone's been having a good summer, and I can't believe we're already 7 months into the year. It's felt like there's been a lot of drama already so far, and I'm sure there's more to come. But personally, in spite of the external challenges we've been facing in our advocacy, I feel this is a really exciting time to be involved in pushing back on things like the UK's squeeze on its global health and global education budgets. And I know we're making a difference, as I hope we'll see in the course of the call. So if you are on this call for the first time, welcome. You're very welcome indeed. I'm Naveed Chaudhri. I'm the head of campaigns at Results UK. And on these regular monthly calls, we share what we're achieving together in our advocacy on international development issues. And we'll come to the theme of our talk specifically on global vaccinations very shortly. But firstly, I'll start with our housekeeping messages. Please do keep yourself muted during the call. If you've got any questions or comments, please try to put them in the chat box and we will do our best to answer them. Captions should now be turned on. So if you want to enable or disable those, you're very free to do so using the Zoom toolbar. And we do record this call for those who couldn't make it. So if you don't want to be visible in the call, feel free just to turn your video off. So if there's anyone on the call who would like to just say hello, introduce yourself, say where in the UK or where in the world you are from, then please do say hello.
Yes, hello to everyone. Yeah, my name Abbas Radaide. I am volunteering with Result UK since 3 years ago. So I am enjoying with you from Cardiff, Wales. So I am happy to be here today. Thank you.
Great to have you with us as always, Abbas. Anyone else would like to say hello? It's not obligatory, of course.
Hello, I'm Richard from North London. Welcome to everybody.
Hello, Richard. And I should say for everybody's benefit, if you didn't know, that Richard is a member of our board of trustees. Okay, so look, before we move on to the main topic of the conversation today, I will start with what I usually do, which is some updates on the things that are going on in the world of politics, particularly UK politics, and international affairs that affect Results' advocacy on global poverty and inequality. First, before we move on to health, I want to talk a little bit about global education, which we asked for your support on last month. On the 22nd of July, the UK government released some new data, which had a shocking figure of a 51% cut next year to the FCDO, as the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office's Girls' Education Department, which manages our education programs for children around the world. And you might have seen some reference to that in some major news outlets. So when we saw that news that wasn't good, at first sight, it looks like our call last month to protect the global education budget fell on deaf ears. However, I would like to reassure you that these numbers are a bit misleading, and it isn't the massive cut it appears to be at first look, and nor is it confirmation that education has fallen off the agenda just yet. So that's the really important takeaway from this part of the call. Last year's numbers, this gets a little bit technical, but I'll try to, I hope I've understood this. Last year's numbers were inflated because of a large payment to the Global Partnership for Education, or GPE, which the UK funds. And so it received more than it normally would do. It's not been it's all been skewed into 1 year. And so that's going down to a more normal level next year. So it makes that figure of 51% much higher than it would be. So the budget that has been published by the government shows that there should be enough money, if they want to do it, to fund Education Cannot Wait, the Fund for Education in Emergencies, and the Global Partnership for Education. So we still have the opportunity to persuade them that that can be done. And the biggest decisions, we've been told, are still yet to be made. And there is still time before the autumn when the FCDO will finally, have its final calls in and finalise its budget. And we are expecting to see some big cuts then, but we can still change their minds. So I just wanted to sort of, if you like, interpret that news so that, it's not just that we've succeeded, although still we are obviously facing a bit of an uphill struggle, but it does make your actions particularly timely and effective. And there's still time to write a letter if you haven't already. And while we know there'll be cuts to education, we'll try and keep those down as far as we can through our advocacy within the scope that we have, within the limited budget parameters that we now have. Now, I'm sure that that isn't really 100% easy to understand, or certainly to put in a letter. So I'm just going to put a couple of links in the chat to some. Let me see if that's gone right. Yes, it has. Just to some articles online, so you can read it for yourself. We've got a blog post about it from our Hannah, one of our, and Chidinma, our education experts in results. And there's also an article from the chair of the all-party parliamentary group on education, writing in the Independent. So you might find those helpful to put a bit more flesh on the bones of what I just said. Okay, so that's not the only issue that's being affected by these the budgets that are being announced, and there's also a 46% cut to spending on global health programs by the UK in the next financial year. And obviously that's massive, no question about that. I'm going to put another link in the chat. Again, follow those if you want to in your own time. But this is about the government's own assessment of the impact that those changes will have. By law, it has to do what's called an equality impact assessment. So it owns up, essentially saying, these are the cuts we've made, and this is who it's going to affect. And it's clear that there's an effect on marginalized communities, particularly, and women and girls. So starting off with the somber news, but let's move on to something a bit more positive, which we already know about, and that is the commitment that the government made just last month to Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, which we're going to talk about more tonight. And that's for 1.25 billion over the next 5 years, which most of you know about now. And that our advocacy, I hope you feel that your work has played some part in that, in the UK's contribution. So this evening, we're going to explore a bit more what Gavi actually does, what that money achieves, and how we can help make that as effective as possible. And we'll come to that in a minute. And we, the chief executive of Results, Kitty Airy, has received a letter a couple of weeks ago directly from the chair and directors of Gavi, thanking her. So she was at the replenishment, and it basically saying thank you to Results for our partnership, as they've put it. So that's not just Kitty taking the credit for that. I think you all need to take your share of the credit as well. We actually, to have a letter from the head of Gavi to say thank you, I think is a really big deal. So please do take your share of the credit for that. So again, what we don't yet know is what's going on with the UK's global health budget beyond Gavi. That's a very big chunk of money, but what about some other things? And this month, we're asking you to hopefully not just thank the government for what they've done with Gavi, but say, well, what about some of these other things? And one of the big missing pieces, or not big in monetary terms, but an important missing piece, is polio eradication. And many of you on the call will know a bit about that. If you don't, that's fine. We've sent you all the facts you need to know in our action email, if you've received that. And if you haven't, just put something in the chat box and we'll make sure we can get them to you if you give us your details if we haven't got them already. So we need some money there. It's going to be £100 million over 2 years, so a smaller sum by quite a long way than Gavi, but that's one of the things that we still need to do some work on. The other thing, a bit bigger, hopefully up around £1 billion, is the Global Fund to fight HIV, TB and malaria, which comes around every 3 years, which we need to put more money into that. And we'll be campaigning on that in September. So around about the end of August, third week of August or so, we'll be sending you an email with that next month's campaigning action. But this month is thank you on Gavi, but don't forget polio. Lastly, before I shut up, we are, as some of you know, we support in results, we support the All-Party Parliamentary Group, or APPG, on tuberculosis, which, as well as working on global TB, is looking at TB incidents in the UK, and it's doing an inquiry. And so we're sort of running that for them. And if any of you are particularly interested in TB or HIV or malaria, the work of sorry, this is on TB specifically. I'm getting confused. The APPG is looking into specifically TB rates, forget HIV and malaria. But if you're interested in what that inquiry is about, or even if you'd like to submit some evidence, or you know somebody else who might have some lived experience or some expertise in this topic, please do go and have a look at that. And again, I'm just going to put the link to everything you would need to know in the chat box. So there's a link to the place where you can submit evidence, but also a link to the parliamentary group and what it does. So I'm going to shut up for a bit now and hand over to Will, who will just do a quick rundown of some of the things that you've been doing around the UK.
Yes, thanks a lot, Naveed, and good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's well and enjoying their summer. So first of all, I'd like to give a big shout out to Corinne and Jill, who attended the Mass Lobby Day on the 9th of July, so just under a month ago. That was the day after our last grassroots conference call. So I thought it would now be a really nice chance to hear from either one of you two, maybe about your experience at the Lobby Day, kind of if there was any interesting conversations you had, and also, Jill, I want to take this time to give a massive shout out to you for taking the results tote bag into Parliament, which is always good to see the results as kind of being represented in the corridors of power. So Jill or Corinne, do you have anything to say about your experience at the Mass Lobby Day on the 9th of July?
I don't think Corinne's here tonight, is she? She said she was away.
Not.
No, but I do know Corinne met up with her MP quite early, about 10 o'clock, and mine I wasn't meeting until 5 o'clock. So we had the day, but they both turned up, which was good because quite a number of people we heard that the MP had said they'd come, and they arranged a time, and they never turned up. So but there was a big debate going on that day, but it was really good. Corinne didn't talk about the debt because she'd already talked to her MP about that, but it was just a sort of general meeting for her. But she said it was very good. It was part of the climate change lobby. So the ask was about the debt, about getting better laws from the UK government, because 90% of the debt that's outstanding in other countries comes through UK. So it's a big push to try and get the UK government to change the laws. So there was eight of us that actually met with my MP from Sutton, and the others were all talking about things to do with the environment or climate change, things like that. But we were standing in Westminster Hall for 45 minutes, standing around, so it was difficult not to get notes. But one thing I did do was I met up with my MP Luke Taylor. It's his communications officer, and his name was Guy, and I had a long talk with him afterwards, and I gave him the the report from Sunit because he was asking about debt. So that was very good to be able to make that contact with him. Since then, yesterday, I got an email from my MP saying that he'd like to meet with us again in Sutton, and suggested the 19th of August. Would the group like to meet up with him? So I've answered yes, I would.
Well done, Jill. That's great.
So that's really good. So I sent you an email, but I don't think you saw it, Naveed, just asking where we take this from here. But I think I'm going to come up with an absolute definite ask and then say, when will you be able to do this? I think that'd be quite good. But I mean, the other people there, it was great. I wasn't looking forward to it because I'm used to campaigning with the results people, but they were brilliant. And we talked about everything from Swift boxes to sewage into rivers to oil fields to all sorts
A very
of
mixed bag.
a very mixed bag, but it was good. So, but he wrote things down. So this will be a follow up, which will be really good. But he's keen to meet with environment people from the local authority. He is also, as well as being an MP, he's also a local councillor, which I don't think you're allowed to do, but he's still on the local council. So there we go. So it was a really good day.
Yeah, that sounds really, really amazing. And I'm sure Sunit will be delighted that you passed on the report as well. And looking forward to hear how the next meeting goes in later on this month. So that's really fantastic advocacy, really. Yeah, so thank you so much. And next, I'd also like to say a big thank you to those who told us about your recent campaign actions and forwarded any replies, including on development financing and the Global Fund. And if you haven't yet forwarded on any replies or sent your actions, please do keep them coming in. And on that note, thank you for everyone who took our July action on education. As Naveed said, we still have an opportunity to kind of influence education, and it's obviously a really important time. So thank you to Pete, Karen and Kathy. And I wonder if there's any more on this call who we haven't heard about who have taken up that action for July.
I did it. I haven't had a reply, but
yeah, I did too. But yeah, I haven't had a reply either.
Thanks, Tony. Okay. Well, look forward to hearing from those replies. And thank you so much.
Very much indeed. That's amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. So yeah, you know, as Naveed mentioned, and as we're hearing in a lot of places, you know, these letters are definitely getting noticed in Parliament and in government. So it's so amazing that you're able to keep sending them in. On that note, Naveed has written a really fantastic blog, and it really is, on kind of why advocacy matters and the importance of grassroots advocacy. And I think that will be really helpful to kind of any new or potential advocates to understand how taking part in political process to achieve real change works. And I think it's good for all of us to read, actually, to kind of remind us why we do this and the difference that our voices can make. So yeah, even in a time, I guess, when kind of supporting international development feels quite difficult, I think I would recommend giving Naveed's blog a read to kind of remind yourself and re-energize yourself as to why we all do this. And I think Naveed's able to share that into the chat now, hopefully.
Should be able to. I've got extra screens going on today. You probably see I'm in a slightly different configuration from what I normally am. I'm struggling with the technology. Thank you for plugging my blog, Will. That's kind of you. So yeah, thank you. And I think it's high time we now move into the topic of our conversation this evening. I see our speaker has been waiting patiently for us to finish our updates and really looking at some of these implications of the replenishment, the successful replenishment for Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, but what's the strategy going forward for an institution like that in terms of its provisions for global health, particularly around vaccinations, its core work. for communities and people in lower income countries. So it's a really, really great privilege to welcome Dr. Bvudzai Magadzire to this call tonight. Bvudzai, I can see you there. Welcome. She is a very eminent guest, I have to tell you. She is the Director of Partnerships at an organisation called VillageReach and is based in South Africa, where I have to tell you it's a bit late. So thank you so much for joining us. VillageReach works on ensuring health services for the hardest to reach people in Africa, collaborating with people like ministries of health and other partners to enable the work of health programs, I guess, such as externally health funded programs to be successfully integrated in domestic health systems. And in fact, recently, Results and VillageReach partnered together over the Gavi replenishment, and we successfully got a number of African health ministers to write to the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, about why the UK's support for Gavi matters. So very much complementing the kinds of letters that you've been writing. So that was an interesting partnership, and we're very grateful for that partnership. In addition, and this is important for tonight, Bvudzai sits on the board of Gavi. She's actually a board member of this powerful multilateral. So it's an incredibly senior and influential position. And we are really looking forward to hearing from you what this entails. So a very big welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Naveed, and hello, everybody. Good evening. I bet most of the people are in Europe, and so it's evening as well. It's an absolute pleasure to be here tonight and to be able to meet just a few of the people that have been so influential in what is now a successful replenishment, as Naveed has mentioned. I know that it is you, the 20 people who are joining me on the call, but it's so many others probably who are not here tonight, who are probably taking their summer breaks and all of that. But please take my deep gratitude as a civil society advocate myself, as a board member of Gavi, and as a member of what we call the civil society constituency in Gavi, which if you were all part of that, if you were part of Gavi, you would also belong to that constituency. That is the constituency where non-profit organizations such as VillageReach, the organization that I work for, is a part of, Results is a part of that, and many others. And so it is an absolute pleasure to be here tonight. I wish we could just all unmute and give a wonderful big applause, because you have no idea what we got for this replenishment in the current environment, as has been said several times from the time that we started this call, we think was actually really amazing. And so we are truly grateful to your leadership in the UK. We are truly grateful for all the effort that you have put behind this replenishment. And so this evening, I'm hoping we can have a conversation like friends over tea. I know the British love tea, so hopefully we can have a conversation over tea, pretty informal, where I can tell you about the work that we do. Could be my organization, could be the constituency, what I call the constituency, which is the membership of the like-minded organizations that work on Gavi, what we do. And hopefully you can also help me to answer, or to unpack some difficult questions that I might have, in terms of how we work in immunization. One of the things that I will say from the updates as I was listening, I heard Naveed talk about education, I heard polio, I heard several things. What I can tell you is that the same child who is going to be vaccinated through a Gavi program is the same child that needs education, is the same child that might be vulnerable to getting polio as well. So when you think about about this work that you're doing, think about it more holistically, as all landing on these same communities that you serve, with the different programs that you're advocating for, whether it's through Global Fund, which I heard you'll be starting the campaign in September. That's the same child who might be vulnerable to malaria as well, or TB, and so, or their parents. So it is that this is the kind of these are the kinds of communities that we're working in. We don't have a narrow view of diseases. We look at people more holistically. And so we really thank you for that. Now, I am going to just give you, maybe perhaps start with some prompts that Naveed provided me with.
But can I stop you for a second before we do those prompts?
Okay, go ahead.
Firstly, thank you so much for your kind words. And I think we should actually give that round of applause that you just asked for. So unmute if you want.
Thank you.
That's all of us. And along with all of those other civil society organizations around the world that Bvudzai mentioned. But I wonder if you could just, before we get into our prompt questions, whether you could just say a little bit about yourself personally. We love to hear about how people got into this area of work. What is it about global health and advocacy that made you become such an eminent person in the field?
Thank you very much. So, you know, I was always a curious one, I would say. But when I went into into my undergraduate program, and I tell this story that for me it was providence, because I got assigned to a program that I had not applied for. And then initially I was quite upset. I thought, this is not what I applied for. What happened? And then I got to a point where I said, actually, let me just go and find out. And then I can drop off before registration closes and go to something else. So, you know, if you have been in university before, you will know that there's that period of registration which might last 2 or 3 weeks. And I thought, let me go and sample the classes. And if I don't like it, I will change it before the registration closes. I went into my undergrad Bachelor of Health Sciences class and I never left because I was so intrigued. I was so interested in the courses. And my mother, who knew that I had been so upset, was so surprised. I mean, I was so upset that I even wanted to change the uni and go to another one. That's how offended I felt. As a prideful teenager, I would say, at that time, thinking, why would they just assign me something that I didn't apply for? So I never left. And so I say that I got into this field providentially, because I think this is where I was supposed to be. And then, you know, after uni, I continued working in this field, started off in a consulting firm in Zimbabwe, which is actually where I'm originally from. And then started graduate school in South Africa. And again, never left South Africa, but have been working in public health initially in academia. I worked for one of the schools of public health here for 6 years before I moved to VillageReach 9 years ago. And so in VillageReach, I started off as a researcher. In fact, I started off my research career even soon after undergrad in these consulting firms that I was in, and then went into academia. Then my research was really cemented. And so advocacy for me was a natural step, you know, to match my research. You know, it's like, okay, so what? You get to the so what phase after you've done your research, so what? And then the so what piece is what really led me to advocacy. And again, when I got into advocacy, I got so interested, and I haven't left yet. So, you know, this is where I am now. In VillageReach. VillageReach is one of the first partners of Gavi outside of UN partners like WHO and UNICEF. VillageReach was one of the partners that Gavi partnered with so many years ago. So the partnership with Gavi is something that is very important for us. We support Gavi programs in several countries especially in Mozambique, in Malawi, in DRC, in Cote d'Ivoire, and in Kenya especially, doing several different things, including strengthening supply chain to ensure that medicines are safely brought to health facilities or to communities where they are needed. But we also do several other things. And so when the invitation came, now close to three and a half years ago now, to say, you know, there was going to be an opening for representation for civil society on the board and on the program and policy committee. For VillageReach, it was quite a natural step to say, you know, Gavi is an important partner for us. Let's nominate someone. And I was nominated because of the work that I was doing, because of my understanding of the intersection of research and advocacy, because I am located in the region in Africa where a lot of this work with Gavi is happening. I was nominated, and it's been the honor of my life to represent civil society organizations, but also to represent, more importantly, the communities that we serve on this board, and to actually bring the reality of the experience to the policymaking arena. That has been the honor of my life to do that for the last 3.5 years.
Thank you.
Again, not alone. I sit on that board, but I'm carried by so many behind me, including Kitty from Results, Alex, Tanya, several of your folks in Results, and in this group. They contribute to the positions that we bring to the Gavi board. So you see two people, myself and my alternate board member, One, but actually we represent a very large constituency of more than 400 organizations. Prior to every meeting, we do the best that we can to sit and listen and digest with the constituency, to formulate our positions as a constituency. And so we are messengers, in a sense, for so many others who are behind.
Thank you. That's a wonderful starting point to the opening question, and love that question about, you know, what got you into advocacy. Like, so what? The so what question, and that led you into advocacy. What do you do with your research? That's a really wonderful story. So that in preparing for this call, I have made a little bit of a mess of the opening question. You might have seen some odd things in the chat. Stork Valley Group, I think, is going to ask the first of our questions, but it's not the question that they originally thought they were going to ask. And my apologies to Stork Valley and also to Bvudzai for misunderstanding how we were going to deal with this topic tonight. But I'm sure lots of the other topics that you're starting to already talk about will come up in people's questions when we open to the floor. So if I can start off with, I think either Pete or Jill asking the first question.
I think Jill should ask it because she knows what it is.
She got it first.
It was changed. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
We might get on to the other one because the other one's really important as well. Yes. Okay. Hi there. How can civil society organisations engage with Gavi to improve its work?
Fantastic.
So you've almost started launching us into this topic, Bvudzai, about, you know, all of the people behind you.
Yes.
How would you like them to engage to improve what Gavi does going forward?
Thank you. Thank you so much. And that's a very important question, which gets to the heart of why have we been awarded as a whole constituency on what is called the Gavi Alliance, you know? Why are we there? Why do we have a seat on the board? Why are we a prominent member? There are several things. The first thing that we always say when we are talking about our constituency, we are probably the most diverse constituency as part of the Gavi Alliance, because we are not a homogeneous group. We are a very diverse group with different strengths. As you will see, we will have your organizations such as Results that may be doing advocacy sitting in London, but then you also have your very local organizations that are reaching the communities. You also have organizations that are working at a regional level with regional institutions like your Africa CDC or your UN offices at the regional level. Some of our civil society organizations may be operating at multiple levels, at more than one level. Now, when we think about this next strategy that Naveed talked about, the next strategy that we're getting into come January 1, 2026, is what is called Gavi 6.0. So for every strategic period, there's always like a number next to it. The current one that we're in started off as Gavi 5.0, and when COVID came, it became 5.1 because, you know, we were incorporating COVID into it. And so now we are going into 6.0. And so 2 weeks ago, some of you may know that we had to meet as a board to really discuss what are we going to be prioritizing in 6.0. So I'll start referring it now as 6.0 because I've just told you what it is and it's easier. And why were we having this conversation? We're having this conversation because, as you know, the economy, the global macroeconomic conditions are not good. And so we didn't get all the billions that we had hoped for. We got most of it, but not all of it. So we had to go back to the drawing board and then really decide what are the things that we're going to prioritize. And just track with me on that, because I'm going to then get to the questions on the question on how can civil society organizations engage with Gavi in this work. And so we started now saying, what are the important things that Gavi should do? So the first one is the obvious one, which is providing vaccines, right? I think that's a no-brainer for all of us. Gavi should be making vaccines available, accessible for all communities in low and middle income countries. The second thing is that in the regions where Gavi operates, both in Africa and Asia, there are children that are consistently missed. Why are they consistently missed? There are some fundamental flaws in the system that that just lead to the children being completely missed. And again, I'll go back to the original statement that I made. These children are missed by vaccines, but they're also missed by nutrition, they're missed by education, they're missed by so many other things. So there are communities that are vulnerable, really, really vulnerable. And the strength of many members of civil society, especially in the country, is reaching these children. Because of a lot of the local civil society organizations are very proximate to where these communities are, and they know where to find them. They know where to find missing children, which your health worker, as well-meaning as they may be, at a health center in DRC, they have to wait for the child to come with their caregiver, right? But if you start employing or leveraging the strength of civil society organizations, especially the ones that are working at community levels, they will tell you, they will know every child that was born in their community, and they can track for you and find the children who are missing their vaccinations. So this is as simple as it gets, but civil society organizations are actually, dare I say, the only organizations that actually work at what we call the last mile. And the last mile is that household that might be in that faraway corner that you may not find on your Google Maps, where that family may have to travel a number of kilometers, maybe 10 kilometers to get to the nearest health facility. There's no reliable transport that gets there. But the community health worker, who is often a volunteer, by the way, will know where to find that child. And so in this next strategy, we are saying, ensure that these community cadres who know where to find the children are well-resourced to be able to do just that. But also ensure that your immunization programs are also working hand in hand with your nutrition programs, with your other programs, so that these children are getting an integrated response, right?
That's a wonderful starting point. Can I?
Yeah. So that's the one thing. What I do want to add there, though, which is important in the context of Gavi, is that the board of Gavi has actually approved that a minimum of 10% of the money that goes to the country must go to civil society organizations. So this for us is a win, because it shows that the leadership of Gavi is recognizing the importance of civil society organizations. And so this is what they will be able to do, is to actually reach those children in the last mile.
That's wonderful news. Thank you for sharing that with us. And we've got a couple more questions, and then we're going to open up to the floor. So we'll have to sort of speed on a bit. But that's a really wonderful starting point on what it is that the CSOs, communities, civil society organisations, community organisations bring to the table. And I'd like us to move maybe onto our second question, because I think we need to start to get into how does that happen. So I think, Kathy, are you answering this?
Yes,
the second question. Hi, Kathy, good to see you.
That's me. I'm going to ask the second question, because I actually think, I mean, it's really, really interesting and important to talk about that last mile, because actually those are the things that will make the real difference to the whole effectiveness of Gavi, because it sounds such a remote sort of governmental international organization, but actually it is about individual children getting the right thing. But as you've said, we need people for that last mile, and we're really pleased that the UK has recognized that vaccination, Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance is important. But what we would like to ask you is, yes, you're getting those people to do that last bit, but how are you then monitoring the effectiveness of that to bring it back to the global stage again? So yes, you're getting the civil society, but how does that then feed back into the world politics of it all?
So I think that's a bit about the accountability and how does that actually happen. So yeah, over to you. I'll leave that to interpret that how you want, but
Right. So this is actually a timely question, right? Why am I saying that? Because just at the last board meeting, the board approved what is called a partnership accountability framework. This was in recognition of perhaps that we haven't been doing it as well as we can be, as well as we could do in terms of that reporting. What is this partnership accountability framework going to do? It's part of this next strategy, the 6.0 strategy. It will allow countries to hold partners accountable at an institutional level for the support that they provide to achieving Gavi's strategic goals and priorities. So it's actually going to be at the 3 levels, which is what is happening at the country level, what is happening at the regional level, and what is happening at the global level. And no one who is getting Gavi money is going to be exempt from feeding into this partnership accountability framework. And I think this is something that is also important for you as advocates who, who really contribute to us getting the money, to get some answers around how the money is utilized, for the donors to also understand how the money is being used. The partnership accountability framework, which will go into effect in January, is anchored in the functions that the partners of Gavi carry out at these 3 levels that I've just mentioned. And some of the indicators have already been finalized, and the remaining indicators are going to be finalized in the coming months before the strategy actually kicks in. It links to the functions and the results, actually. So it's not just the functions, but also the results that we're getting from all the contributions and the work that we are bringing in. What might be interesting to hear from you, Kathy, and from others is what is it that would actually make sense for you? What would you like to hear as part of this partnership accountability framework, because it's still being created. So there is room for listening still. What is it that would be important for you? And maybe even as you reflect on the campaigns that you were doing now, you know, for this replenishment, maybe there were questions that you couldn't answer. And what were those questions that you wish maybe for the next cycle, you would love to be able to answer those questions with ease, you know, so that they can also be incorporated into this framework. That would be helpful for us to understand.
I can see Kathy's keen to come back on that before we move on. Let's go for it, Kathy.
Well, I actually, personally, what I would like to see is how you link the vaccine programs to what you were saying about nutrition, about education. Actually, if you've got that child being vaccinated, how does it actually then make sure that that child is not lost to other programs that would help? But I think it's somebody else's turn now.
That's music to our ears, Kathy. You may have seen some publications that Results has been putting out about integration between different program areas. And so it's certainly something that we're pushing for as well behind the scenes. We'll come back, I'm sure, to that issue of the multiple, you know, the holistic approach to children. That might again be, or might not be a lead into the third question, which I think is from the online group.
Yeah, I think it's me, Naveed.
Thank you, Tony. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Yes, please ask your question.
Okay, right. I'll go ahead. So I want to ask, what does it mean practically for a multilateral organisation like Gavi to help build strong health systems? And how do they make a difference for better or for worse?
Thank you, Tony. So we're always talking about strengthening health systems in Results. So Bvudzai, over to you. What's it mean in reality?
Thank you, Tony. And what a difficult question to answer. Why is it so difficult? Because health systems are often so complex and there's no silver bullet for building health systems. Everything is contextual. And so I would start by saying, you may or may not know, but again, Gavi also just approved their first ever health system strategy at the last board meeting, which will again take effect January 1, 2026. But we have already been feeding into that health system strategy, and it's an important one. What I would say is that Gavi, you know, Gavi supports in terms of funding, mostly funding to the countries, but a lot of the responsibilities in terms of what happens in the building of the health system at the country happens at the country level. And so the leadership of the country is so important in terms of their commitment to building that health system. And given what has been happening now, I think we are seeing a lot more leaders from our Gavi 56, 54 countries, you know, expressing that they would want to commit to building these systems. I think that the piece that Gavi plays as a multilateral is one, yes, in resourcing, but the actual work of actually building that system is on the country and its leadership and its people. And that is, you know, and so that's the one piece. The second piece is it's how multilaterals like Gavi actually fund programs, because you can actually weaken a system by the way that you fund it. And going back to this integration piece that we've been talking about, a lot of these parallel programs that we see today actually weaken the system because they come and they only focus on the one thing. And again, the funding, you know, is not, at some point it ends and then that whole thing crumbles again. So a holistic building of the health system in an integrated manner is what is required. If Gavi and other global health initiatives, Global Fund and others, I know that those conversations are already happening. If they could really come together and be intentional about how they supporting health systems, that would be helpful, especially in a way of ensuring that there's an integrated, the systems are supported in an integrated manner, but also ensuring that the solutions that you bring to the country can be sustained. How do you do that? It must be, the solutions that you fund as a multilateral must be affordable for the country. The country must be able to afford it after that funding, has ceased. I think the model of Gavi is one that is favorable for many donors because there's transition and countries kind of take responsibility for procuring vaccines and for delivery over time, and that is what makes it more attractive, I think, to many of the funders, and that is so important. There's the one piece also. I started by saying in the original question, yes, making vaccines available is important, but there are certain pillars of the health systems that are really important, that are currently weak in many of the countries where we operate, including human resources, supply chain, data and information system. We just had a question now on accountability. You can't have good accountability if you don't have good data systems. So because you might be doing good work, but maybe your reporting and your data, is not is suboptimal. And so actually ensuring that health in investing in health systems, we're strengthening some of these pillars that remain around human resources, data, supply chain, governance, because corruption can also be quite a big issue in some of the countries. So ensuring that we have good governance and accountability, these are the important pillars that I think Gavi and others need to invest in, as opposed to only providing commodities. Because if you do that, then you can't sustain the system and you're not building it in effect. Yeah.
I love the way you've ended on that word commodities, and really contrasted that providing of simple interventions with a much more holistic, sustainable, and frankly complex approach to delivery, which is what a health system obviously needs. So thank you for building up that picture. I'm aware we've got about 5 minutes and we're not going to get all through all the questions that people have asked in the chat, but I'm going to try and collate a couple of the questions. There's some questions about your organization, VillageReach. Somebody wanting to know, Abbas asking, do you work in all African countries, including Arab countries like Sudan? And another question about where in South Africa you're located, and are there particular places that you serve? And also, are you in Uganda? Oh, you've answered that one already.
Yeah, so I'm a remote employee in South Africa. We don't work as VillageReach. We don't work in South Africa. It doesn't qualify. South Africa is a middle-income country. We work mostly in low-income countries, and so we don't work here. Our regional offices in Nairobi. We work in Mozambique, in DRC, in Uganda through partners, Tanzania through partners. In Malawi, we have an office. We work in several countries. Some we have physical offices, and then in some we work through partners. We also have a polio program in partnership with Gates Foundation in 15 countries to improve lab sample transportation in 15 countries. So in those countries, in some of them, we work through partners. So we are very pro-partnership, not just partnership with government, but also partnership with other like-minded organizations. And wherever we can go, if not by ourselves, we go through and with partners. But we also consider the governments that we work with as partners, and support them in that way. And then I think that there were several other things. And of course, some of these questions, Naveed, you can send them to me and I can send responses.
Yeah, I was about to suggest there's a question about getting in touch with Ugandan partners, but we can maybe deal with that outside of this call because we've almost no time. Let's have one last question. And anyone want to open the mic, or should I find something on the chat?
I can read mine out if you want.
Go for it, Richard, yes.
Quick. We're going to contact some senior government ministers in the UK, David Lammy and Baroness Chapman, encouraging funding for Gavi. Are there any people we can contact internationally to help the work of Gavi? Of course, it's so easy now with emails.
In what way? Perhaps Richard, could you explain the people? In what way would you be thinking about engaging them?
I don't know. You tell us, and we will engage them.
Is there maybe information that people would find valuable about the UK, or the other way around, that you can see that information that people like you have could help our advocacy here? I guess that would be one way of understanding the question, the flow of information.
Yeah, I would have to give that one a bit of thought and come back to you, because I don't want to give a rushed answer. Why? Because it must be strategic. So if it's a strategic conversation, and of course we always appreciate the work that you do, but I would want to be more thoughtful about that response to ensure that that response would actually be as useful as possible, but also to consult others who may have better insight than I have on it.
One thing I'd add to that actually is that, as you've probably heard, when we develop our actions here in the UK, we are working in a web of partners across the world. Bvudzai and VillageReach is one. We also have the Action Global Health Partnership, which has partners around the world as well. And so if there's information that we need, or if there's a place in the world where more advocacy efforts are needed, we're not the only ones in Results doing that. We're part of a web of putting pressure where it's needed. So I hope that reassures you to some extent, Richard. It's not a specific answer, but that we are, when that strategy is being developed, the advocacy strategy that Bvudzai mentioned, we're taking into account that possibility of pressure being exerted either through different voices, particularly the voices of communities, I would add, or by maybe helping some pressure the other way. But it kind of it kind of would depend. I think we need to close this call, and I'm sorry that it looks like a lot of questions that we haven't got round to, but there's so much to hear about. And Bvudzai, thank you so much for your really eye-opening answers about the reality of what happens now. We've got this money, but what's it actually look like for the engagement of communities? So thank you so much for that. And I think it's clear to us all that when we argue for an organisation like Gavi to have resources, or the Global Fund for that matter, we don't just assume that the money is being used well. We check, we ask questions, we hold them to account. And Bvudzai, thank you so much for your very powerful role in this, on the board itself. That's amazing. And we're so privileged to be working in partnership with you.
It's a real honor, and thank you for having me today. As I said, available to answer questions post this call. And thank you everyone for the engagement. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bvudzai. So as usual, we're going to end the call as a formal call now. If you're able to thank David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, for his contribution, or his announcement of the UK government's contribution to Gavi, that would be great if you feel that's the sort of advocacy you want to do. Some people do, some people don't. But using that as maybe a way into the next part of the story. What about other money that is necessary on polio and the other things that happen in the communities, as we've heard tonight, in a very integrated way? And so we've already shared the action materials in the chat. They were on email to you, but everything you need is in there. So we're going to close the meeting formally now, but if you would like to stay for a chat for anything up to the next half an hour or so, stay on the call and we'll have a bit more of an informal session. But if you're not staying for that, thank you so much for being with us, everybody. If you're new to us, I hope you've had an interesting, if not wholly difficult conversation that was hard to understand. I hope you've got something from it. And thank you for joining tonight, and enjoy the rest of your evenings.
Thank you.